How are you doing? So they say that when people gather, it is important to call the ancestors. And there are many ways to do that. One of the oldest ways is drumming. It looks like there is no culture without a drum. For sure, there is no living thing without a drum. Another way is through stories, because what is stored in stories is the wisdom of those people who were here before us, meaning the ancestors. And I think it's quite important when we get together in a place like this, a place that for 150 years, in the name of justice, witnessed a great deal of injustice. Just to mention one, 17 people were hanged in this place. They couldn't hang more because apparently they had problems finding people to be executioners. So this story I'm going to tell you is from the Apache indigenous people of North America. Not the North America of Clinton and Obama, the other North America. And I'm going to tell you this story while playing a West African drum in a Colombian accent in English. I wish I have an Irish accent, and you should understand me better. But this is what happened with multicultural kind of events. So they say that once upon a time, the one that created the world created people and gave those people a place to dwell. And people lived there for a long time or a short time, the story does not say. And then some people began to complain. This place is too cold. No, it's not good enough. This place has not mountains. The mountains are not too tall. No, the mountains, whatever. They were complaining. So the one that created the world heard them complaining and said, listen, if you don't like this place, go out. Get out of here. You and the descendants after you and the descendants after you. And by the way, put some clothes on. You're naked. Sorry, that's another story. You know, we are in Northern Ireland, so that story is everywhere. In this story, the creator said, listen, if you don't like this place, go ahead. Find another place. Find a place that you like it. The world is abundant. The earth is gigantic. Go ahead. So people went ahead. They looked for a place. They found it. And they began to dwell until some people began to fall into trouble. And other people began to fall sick. And the people who were not in trouble nor sick didn't do anything. So the one that created the world said, listen, let me tell you something about this world. The things of this world that can get you in trouble, that can get you sick, can also heal you. H-E-A-L. Accent, you know? Sometimes I say that and people hear kill you, which is what happened, killing, when healing is not taking place. So, people still didn't do anything because they didn't know what to do. Until one day, 4 people found themselves sitting on a circle. And all of a sudden, the one that was facing the east began to sing songs, to tell stories that were coming out of her mouth. And she did not question that. She just sang them out loud. And then the one that was sitting on the north found some kind of hollow tree, put the skin on it, and began to play it. And the one sitting in the south, she began to dance because her body could not help it. And she knew that a bad dance doesn't kill the earth, but not to dance kills the spirit. Something the Africans say. And then the one facing the west, he also began to sing and to dance and to tell stories about everything that he has witnessed. So the creator, when he saw them doing this, said, listen, let me tell you something. Now that you have found that we are all creators, that we are all demiurges, please go back to the village and look for those who are sick and look for those who are in trouble and heal them. And the Apache brothers and sisters still do that, even today. And I heard that sometimes people gather in places like prisons, places of great injustice, as we have heard tonight, and they try to transform that place into something else. And sometimes a Colombian shows up with a drum, tells an African American, all that stuff, you know? Because if you don't believe me, look around. All right. Thank you. So that's nothing original, except it's a connection to the origins. This is the oldest way of gathering and telling stories. The idea with stories is not to interpret the story, is to see what images in the story talk to you, and that's the door for you to enter the story. So whatever is resonating for you, that's the story that you are hearing. I like the story for two things. One is the calling of imagination. It is my opinion that imagination is the most basic human right. And all other human rights are based on that. The capacity to imagine another world than the world we are in. We are surrounded by wonderful people who are not happy with the world we're in. A lot of Amnesty International kind of people, you know? And we're surrounded by people who think that it's important to protest that. And I do believe that, and I do it a lot. But it seems to me that there is a collapse of imagination in the culture. There is a collapse of imagination in governments. We just heard someone talking about America, the United States of America, because America has many other places, you know, but they call it America. But the United States, you know. And it would be important if the United States government will focus on the human rights abuses that they constantly perpetrate on its own people. For example, just to say something, we have 25% of the world's prisoners, and we are only 6% of the world's population. And we still call themselves the freest country in the world, the strongest democracy in the world. It's so democratic that the Statue of Liberty that used to be used as a symbol to welcome people is now filled with arms invading people across the world. And we know it's not to teach them democracy. It's for other reasons. In a day like this, December 11, 1981, Rufina Maya was in her village of El Mozote with her 4 kids and her husband. And the Salvadorian army came to give them a gift, Christmas gift, like the one we recently witnessed in Gaza. A gift, a kiss of death. 900 people were killed in 2 days. Among them, Rufina Maya's husband, who was killed in front of her and decapitated. Then her 4 kids were taken away from her, including her 8-month-old, who was still breastfeeding. She was on a line of 22 women, and she hid under a tree, an apple tree. And she doesn't know how she survived. She was hiding for 10 days. She was drinking her tears, which were an ocean, and a little creek that she found. I met her in 1999 at the School of the Americas. The School of the Americas is a place where 60,000 soldiers from South and Central America had been trained in torture and counterinsurgency. Torture is not used to gather intelligence, it's used to send a message of terror to the rest of the community, the rest of the population. She survived, and it was 1997 when she died. I was again at the School of the Americas Watch. Now it's called WINSEC. They changed the name. Western Hemisphere Institute for Security Cooperation, a mouthful of bullshit. It's the same school in the same place with the same curriculum, training the same kind of people, the same kind of students. We have gathered information that more than 100 of their students have committed crimes against humanity everywhere in South and Central America. So I was there when she died. And what I do is I do theater. I use theater to not only tell the story. I use giant puppets in this specific case with many other people from the United States. We come together for a week and we create puppets. This time we created puppets of destruction that came to the villages where people were having their lives and burned them. And when all the destruction had occurred, we had a giant puppet of Rufina Amaya, a huge head with gigantic hands. And then she came and she opened her hands, and the waters of life came out of those hands and returned the villages to life. I think that, especially as human rights activists, as people who are interested in pain, interested in the soul, in what is happening to human beings, how some of us get dehumanized, and how do we transform that? We need to carry medicine. And there are many forms of medicine. Art is one of those forms. Yeah. Humor is one of those forms. And I don't know if you have noticed how humorless we have become, especially in this kind of meetings. If I am a young person and I enter this room, I probably feel very scared. What are those people doing? My God, it looks so serious. It's like, haven't you noticed, especially in the United States, that a lot of the organizations that do this kind of work are getting old? That most of the people in those meetings are over 60? And I said, haven't you noticed we haven't seduced too many of the young people, except for the staff and the students who are doing some kind of research? I think we need to bring back imagination. That yes, we need to tell the stories. Yes, we need to do research. Yes, we need to be as vociferous as we can, but it seems to me we also need to provide alternatives. I was, in 1982, a year after Rufina witnessed what she witnessed, I was taken by the military. I was in my home. My younger brother was camping with 3 neighbor kids. It was raining, like in Northern Ireland, but it was in Colombia, And then they asked for help from a priest who gave them shelter, heard them talking politics because it was presidential elections, and then they called the police called the army came to my house at 4 a.m. and took me because I was a student of psychology of the university and a theater person. They didn't kill me, as they did many people before me and many people after me, because international delegates, people like you, were visiting Colombia as witness to the electoral process in this banana republic accused of the worst human rights violations. We still, unfortunately, have the same situation in Colombia. And I was saved by people that I'd never met. My life was spared. And for many years after my brother came out, he joined the guerrilla movement. We had the oldest guerrilla groups in the world. But then after a while, he got disenchanted with what they were doing. And a few years later, in 1999, one of his ex-commandantes became a paramilitary death squad. In Colombia, the paramilitaries had done an amazing job for the rich, the wealthy, the landlords, the corporations, in forcing people off their lands. So we have 4.5 million of internally displaced people in Colombia. It's not in the news. Our presidents never mention it. The United States government never mentioned it because we are the best allies of the United States in South America. So my brother was kidnapped, tortured, and killed. When that happened, I was in the United States already for 10 years. I have exile because it didn't seem interesting for me to just die and not even know who killed me. So I left. I arrived in the United States, the last place in the world where I thought I was going to be. I arrived there as a terrorist. I hated the United States. I hated the people of the United States. I blamed them for the ransacking of South America and many other places in the world. For 9/11, Chile, 1973. Remember that? Our 9/11 in South America? But then I discovered very soon, it took me like 3 days, and no English, to fall in love and to discover how in the United States most people had no idea about America's foreign policy. No idea. So it seemed to me that I was there by fate, that I had to do something. And I started using theater, I started using the arts, I started using stories. And I am here tonight because the Playhouse from Derry has invited us at ImaginAction to come here and work with the communities. On Friday, we were at Tigers Bay with these combatants, and we created a play about suicide because they are very concerned that many of their fellow friends are committing suicide. We're also in the Falls working with kids at a high school, and 15-year-olds were telling us about drugs, alcohol, no dreams whatsoever. Where are you going to be? I don't know, a drug dealer. Yeah, and how you call it? Knee covering. which is a very unique Northern Ireland kind of style of doing justice, you know. And they say, and those who kill the people selling drugs are the biggest drug dealers. I'm very proud that we have been able to come here. I'm very happy to be with you guys. We'll be coming back in March and hopefully working with both communities, with ex-combatants, in order to bring the stories out. We tell it to the community, and then the community is invited to participate, to become aspect actors, and to try to find alternatives. Thank you very much for the invitation, and we now have a break, I think.